Hello, everyone, and thank you for coming along to our webinar to talk about the MSc Psychological Studies programme at the University of Glasgow. It's fantastic to see so many people here. My name is Dr. Christopher Hand. I'm a senior lecturer in psychology at the University of Glasgow, based in the School of Education. I'm the programme leader for the MSc Psychological Studies. So I'm here to talk to you a little bit about the programme, to hopefully be able to answer any questions that you have about the academic content or the structure or routes to employment or further training. And I'm very happy to be here with colleagues from admissions and also with Yihan and Ananya, who are two students who are currently enrolled in this year's cohort on psychological studies. So the plan for this session is that I'll talk to you for a little while about the programme itself. We'll open that up to a bit of a broader discussion with Yihan and Ananya, and then we'll obviously have plenty of time for discussion and questioning. So the programme, the thing that I want to start off by saying is the most important thing, and that is that our programme carries British Psychological Society accreditation, and that is absolutely fundamental if you're thinking about going on to any kind of training as a badged psychologist. So if you're looking to go on to further training in clinical psychology or forensic, health, counselling, sport and exercise, educational, what some people would cynically call real psychologists, that BPS accreditation is absolutely crucial to getting access to that further training. And even if you're thinking about doing this degree for professional advancement or just for interest's sake or for career development, even if you're not thinking about going on to become one of those chartered psychologists, the British Psychological Association is kind of like the gold seal to show that what we are doing is quality and relevant. So, you know, it's not just about access to chartered routes. It is an indicator of quality, and it's an indicator of the value of your degree, whether you plan to use that for access to further training, or whether you use it for self-interest, or whether you use it for some sort of alternative career progression. So what we are is an intensive one-year programme. We cover 180 academic credits, 60 of which are your independent research dissertation, where you work with a supervisor. You might be working one-to-one with a supervisor, or you might be working with a group of peers as part of group collaborative research. The remaining 120 credits are composed of core and optional top courses. The suite of options that we offer varies from year to year. We cover things like thinking and memory and attention and language. We think about child development and relationship attachments. We think about group conflict. We think about how the human body and the human brain react to internal and external processes and factors. We think about individual differences. We think about equality and equity, ethics, social justice, sustainability. You know, the beauty of this degree is that if you can think about something that involves human beings or increasingly AI, the chances are we're going to cover it somewhere in this course, because that's what it's all about. It's all about understanding ourselves, understanding our societies and communities, and understanding the changing world around us. So it's a very contemporary degree, and it's one that we are very, very proud of. So we're, you know, I'm trying to give you a kind of whistle-stop tour and trying to kind of anticipate the things that most people would likely want to know about. And one of those things is about assessment and feedback. We're one of the most diverse programs in terms of what we do in terms of assessment. So complete transparency, we do have some exams, and I know that for some people exams can be a little tricky. But the nice thing is we have a lot of support in place to prepare you to be able to succeed in exams. But we don't really have that many exams, certainly compared to other disciplines within the social sciences. We have A lot of coursework. And again, we do have some kind of traditional essays. We have lab reports, we have multiple choice quizzes, we have presentations. And I think the diversity of assessment gives people a chance to shine. It allows people to showcase different skills, different ways of working. And again, that's something that when we've had our professional accreditation from the British Psychological Society, that's something that they generally commend us on, is the sort of variability in what we do in our assessment space. It's not just essays and exams. We try to use portfolios. We try to encourage people to be creative. And because this is a postgraduate degree, we are very aware that people are already coming to join us with certain skills. So we try to think of ways to allow people to use the skills that they've already developed, either as undergraduates or in colleges or in the world of work or volunteering. We try to encourage space for people to use those skills. We take feedback really seriously. So in your first semester between September and December, we try to space out the assessments as best we can so that you can use the feedback from assessment 1 on course A for assessment 1 on course B and so on and so forth. And then when we move into semester 2, which is typically sort of January to late March, the idea is that the assessments there should enable you to use that feedback that you had in semester 1 to succeed in semester 2. We use our class time to try to help you prepare for assessments. So, for example, if you have a 2-hour seminar with me in cognitive psychology, in the first hour, we'll maybe be recapping the learning blocks and talking about cognitive topics, doing some practical activities. And then in the second half of the seminar, we're maybe focused on the coursework. So that maybe allows you to work with a peer or to work with me or to work as part of a group in order to ask questions about your coursework or showcase some of your work in progress. We take that really seriously because we know how difficult a degree this is. We know that for most of you, you're coming to study in a new place, in a new academic discipline. So again, we're all about trying to give you as many opportunities to succeed as possible. Thinking beyond the degree, I've already mentioned that some people do this degree to go on to train to become chartered psychologists in things like clinical counselling, health and exercise, sport and exercise, educational, forensic. And we do provide an awful lot of support and resources, many of which come from our professional body, in terms of supporting you, in terms of how, where and when to apply to those further training programmes. We also have an awful lot of graduates that go on to do really incredible things that have nothing to do with psychology as a profession. So we have people who go into education or go into the health service or go into the charity sector, go into the armed forces or the emergency services, go into marketing, go into people services. So just like undergraduate psychology, this postgraduate degree has a really broad set of destinations afterwards. And our graduates in the past few years have had really good success in getting onto sort of psychology doctoral training programs or psychology sort of discipline specific masters. But we've also had a lot of success with people going on to really interesting and exciting careers all over the world. And the skills and the knowledge that they've acquired through the psych studies degree has prepared them really well for that. One of the main things that you'll do in this degree is you'll learn about research, you'll learn about research ethics, you'll learn about sustainability in research, you'll learn how to code, you'll learn how to interpret data and report. And regardless of whether you're thinking about going on to further study or whether you're thinking about going into the world of work or volunteering, being able to understand research and being able to understand data is an incredibly valuable thing. Not just monetarily, but just in terms of being able to understand what you're being asked to do, being able to make good decisions, and being able to plan. Data is absolutely central to what we do in this degree and increasingly in the world around us. So I'm conscious that I've talked quite a lot. So I think it would be helpful if I start to open up the conversation a little bit and invite in Yihan and Ananya. So maybe to start us off, maybe I'll ask Yihan first, because I can see your photograph first. Yihan, if you could introduce yourself and explain a little bit about your role within the course.
Okay, so hi everyone. Thanks for having me today. So my name is Ihan. I'm an international student currently studying the MSc Psychological Studies program. I remember like being in your shoes, like curious and a bit nervous about what to expect. So I hope my experience can provide you with some clarity. So I'll just talk about my experience so far with this program and a bit about like my own like insights. So at the beginning of the program, you will have a whole induction week on campus. So the university organizes numerous events and fairs to welcome all of the students and help you to settle in. So both the education and psychology schools will host welcome events as well, and they will deliver like comprehensive induction lectures to ease your nerves, and you will be informed of all the essential informations and key resources and key contact details. Essentially, you will get everything you need to kick a start. So additionally, you will have specific induction lectures at the beginning of each term, introducing you to the program structures and what to expect for that term. So I know that conversion students always like typically come from like various backgrounds, and you may worry, okay, this is a completely new subject for me. Will I be able to handle it? I think that's no need to worry at all, because the course is very well structured and tailored to teach students step by step to meet the final learning outcomes, and you won't feel like too overwhelmed. So personally, I come from a natural science and a finance background, and I was a little bit concerned about writing essays because my previous work mainly involved like writing lab reports or business reports. So what really helped me develop my essay writing skills was the range of supporting resources available from the university services and also individual teaching staffs. So just to give you an idea of the kind of support you can get, so you can seek help from your lecturers, either face-to-face during the office hours or like online via Teams and Moodle forums. And there are also like online and offline resources to support your academic writing. They've got like special programs for international students to teach them how to write academic essays, to develop their critical thinking skills. You also got support from teaching assistants and also peer assistant learning opportunities as well. Speaking of assessments, the assessments, as Chris said before, is quite diverse. It's a mix of essays, exams, poster presentations, and portfolios. So the assessment is, I would say, it's kind of like creative designed to apply what you've learned to solve kind of like a real world challenges or situations, just to prepare you for further academic studies and enhance your employability. I remember like there's one time I applied for a research assistant position, like a summer intern, and I could just readily draw on my experience from this degree, such as like conducting quantitative studies using second data, or like delivering focus group interviews and developing like data skills in using R. So in this master program, you will learn how to use R to do the coding. So R is like a programming language for data analysis. So I really appreciate that this program teaches R, not SPSS, because R can do like far more things and prepares you for either pursuing a PhD studies or like working in the industry. And the feedback from the teaching staff is critical and constructive and very informative. They genuinely want to help you improve, and they take student feedback very seriously to refine their teaching experience. So the staff are very passionate about teaching. They're very approachable and dedicated. So meaning that you can typically get your questions answered like within 24 hours during working days. So office hours are incredibly useful. Students can use them to ask like course-related questions or like discuss their future career options or just like networking. So I remember like I was there's one time I was like struggling with the coursework, and during like I popped in my tutor's office hour, and she spent like literally like an hour and a half like helping me with all my questions, just ensuring that I knew what to do next with this assignment. I was quite touched, and also I feel like very supported. Um, in terms of social life, you'll meet people from all over the world, and you will have plenty of opportunities to make friends through group projects, or like clubs and societies, volunteering, or any like social events. There's just a lot of going on through the year. The School of Psychology has a specialized student experience officer who is specifically in charge of students' events and well-being. And many of my peers, they take on like part-time jobs or volunteering roles. So I know like balancing work, volunteering, and studies can be a little bit challenging because this is kind of like a one-year study, and this can be very intensive and demanding. But however, it is still manageable if you manage and plan your time wisely. Um, like for example, like currently I volunteer with 3 local charities. Two of them are related to child mental health, and another one's related to helping people who suffer from eating disorder. So I found them either through the university network or through my course lecturer. They will also advertise some like volunteering opportunities as well. So as I said, with a bit of planning, you can juggle multiple responsibilities and kind of like gain a practical experience to enhance your CV during just this one-year study. Speaking of the career prospects, so the program opens like numerous career paths, such as pursuing further studies in like PhD or applied psychology fields, including the popular ones like counseling and clinical psychology. Like I think Chris mentioned that before, the BPS accreditation is a prerequisite for any PhD or professional doctorate studies. So completing this conversion degree is absolutely essential if you want to pursue a PhD. And some people may want to find jobs in industries such as like research, healthcare, human resources, marketing, consulting, etc., etc. So if you wish to be a practitioner, you could also seek for like further trainings in counseling or psychotherapy. You could do like a diploma course or second master. Just there are many options to explore just based on your interest in different areas in psychology. The university's career service has really fantastic resources that can help you to plan your next step very early on. The university also provide various short courses and practical workshops to help you enhance your employability skills. There are some short courses directly related to psychology. For example, I'm currently doing a COSCA counseling skills certificate course. So that's kind of like a one-year weekly course on campus. And also there are online course called like Impact of Trauma. So there are lots of different courses like along besides the program studies that you could explore. The department will also organize some wonderful career events as well. They will invite psychologists from various fields to share their personal experience and offer some valuable career advice. So overall, I think it is rigorous but rewarding experience. It's kind of like a journey of academic growth, personal development, and of course, like building lasting connections with your peers and teachers. Yep, so that's all I want to share with you for now, and I'm happy to take any questions later on.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Ananya, welcome and thank you for coming along. I know you had some problems with IT this morning, which ironically was a big focus of the meeting I was in from 10 till 11 as well. So I think it would be great to hear from you about your experiences of being a student on the programme, you know, things that are maybe similar to Yihan's experience or maybe things that you feel are a bit more unique. So yeah, thank you again for coming along and please do share with us some of your experiences.
I'm happy to be here and share my experiences. Yehan has provided a great description of what the course is like. So I think I'll focus more on what went well and just some things I want to highlight. So it's definitely a rigorous course if you haven't been in a very psychology-oriented course before, but with the guidance and support that is available, it is very doable, and there is a variety of support, as Jan mentioned, and at no point did I feel that I was not able to reach out to anyone, or I felt like I couldn't solve an issue that I had. And this was also my experience with the disability services. So at throughout the course, I had support in the form of that, and everyone is very accessible. You can reach them easily, and in the office hours or email. And so there's a lot of support, and then you can also, you know what to expect from day one in the orientation, and in across the course you have a lot of guidance, and um, you know what to expect, what's coming next, and what will happen throughout the semester. You get the timetable early of the exams and the assignments that are there, and they are also really interesting and engaging, and um, just makes you synthesize whatever you've learned throughout the semester. And that has helped me build a lot of research skills, a lot of academic writing skills, and a lot of the studying is very research oriented, and um, it's just a very um, it's a very engaging learning experience, and I enjoyed that a lot. And something that was a focus all the time was ethics, and I feel like with this course I've built a very deep understanding of ethics in psychology and in research. And I've built research skills that in both individual projects, in statistics and qualitative analysis, and also working with groups, because generally in research in universities, you're always working with a group, you're working with many people. And I got the experience across both semesters working with a group, and that was really helpful. And I think that will help me, someone who's planning to go into research. It helped me build skills to work in a group. And that is it. It was very nice. If you don't have a background in psychology, engage from day one and you'll be fine.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much. I've been trying to type back to some of the questions, but I think it would be helpful for me to read through them as well. And thank you so much for sharing those questions. It's really helpful when you have these sessions when people do ask questions. And again, if anybody wants to contribute while I'm answering, things that I've maybe missed, particularly Yihan and Ananya and colleagues from admissions. So there were some questions about timetabling and what does a normal week look like in terms of hours. And one of the things about our programme is it varies quite a lot from week to week. So although, for example, in some weeks you might only be in class for maybe 6 hours, you're still effectively working 35 hours by the time you do reading, and you're working on coursework and assessment preparation, and all these sorts of things. Some weeks are a little more intensive in terms of the amount of time that you'll spend in class, and some weeks are less. And halfway through the teaching semester, we have what's called a reading week, where there's generally no class teaching. And the idea there is that you use that time to consolidate what you've been learning in the first half of the semester. You maybe dedicate some extra time to courseworking. So it's quite a varied timetable from week to week. Another related question was about working, and we do understand that realistically many people will be working or balancing caring commitments, and again we do try to be sympathetic towards those needs. Your timetable essentially could be any time between sort of 8 till 6 on a Monday to Friday. We, of course, try to avoid sort of antisocial hours. But of course, every single programme in the university tries to avoid 9 o'clock on a Monday and 4 o'clock on a Friday. So it is very competitive to try to get those midweek, midday slots. But we do try to be pragmatic and sensible about how we build the timetable. One of the questions was about work experience, and we don't have a placement within the course. As far as I know, no conversion degrees offer placements. And part of that is simply to do with the availability of supervision for placements. Placements are really quite risky things, and tend to be a little more common in sort of 4-year undergraduates when there's more time to actually have the placement as well. What we do, though, is we do encourage you and try to support you to find relevant working experience. That might be inside the university, it might be externally. And again, we work with our British Psychological Society to try and share resources about working opportunities. Staff will sometimes advertise working opportunities as well. And another question was about dissertation, and actually sometimes people continue on their dissertation work after they finish the assessment component as a way to kind of bolster their research experience. Again, you know, these are things that I think we do really quite well within the programme in terms of supporting people around working. Again, I'm going to try and work through the questions one at a time. And again, I do apologise if I missed any. Great question from the chat window about reading materials prior to starting the course. We're in the process of updating what's called our digital dashboard, and that generally gives some links to open access free resources for people who are motivated and have the capacity to do some additional reading. The one thing I would try to reassure you is that we don't expect people to have done reading and study and these kind of things. If I was coming onto this programme, I would be more inclined to maybe look out for any of the kind of university level pre-induction things. So if there's any kind of online programs or even face-to-face programs that are about being new to University of Glasgow or how to succeed more generally as a student at the University of Glasgow, I would kind of maybe encourage you to do more of that stuff rather than doing sort of specific psychology pre-study. And that's purely because, you know, this degree is designed for people who are new to psychology. You know, some people might have done a few credits here and there or a couple of courses here and there, but we don't assume a high baseline. I think what's maybe more important is things like pre-sessional English language, if English is not your first language, or maybe familiarising yourself with the library website and these sorts of things. But yeah, we will give you some readings, but there's absolutely no expectancy to have done academic reading around it. There's a few questions about dissertation, and you know that makes absolute sense because it's a big chunk of the degree. It's 60 out of your 180 credits. So there's one question about, can you link it to topics where you've got prior knowledge? Yes is the short answer. You know, you negotiate that with your supervisor, and obviously it has to be ethical and achievable within the time frame that you're working and within the constraints and within the responsibilities that we've got to you. But yeah, there's lots of experience, you know, there's lots of examples where people have brought either their working experience or their life experience or their previous academic study into the dissertation space. I mean, Yihan and Ananya, I think I maybe bring you back in there. I mean, is there anything that you could maybe talk about how you came to your topics for your dissertations? You know, how did you develop that topic? And you know, was it new? Was it based on stuff you'd done before?
Okay, so I could give a go. So for the dissertation, I know because so before I get started, I know I have certain topics in my mind that I really want to do. for example, I really want to do like trauma related thing because and also I want to do something with related to child and adolescents. So I was kind of like so in terms of the ethic aspects, because it's quite sensitive, we're talking about child and the trauma, things like that. So I have a round of discussion with my supervisors in terms of the ethics and then the practicality side of it. And then I decided to use secondary data. So I mean the research supervision is super helpful because the research supervisor can give you very valuable advice on like ethical approvals and then the practical side of it, because it's only like you only got like 5 or 6 months to write it. It's not like a PhD thesis. So you have to think about the practical thing. So if you don't have like much research experience before, I think you could definitely still do it. Definitely like you've got all the support from as I said, from the research supervisors and also from the university as well. They will run a series of like dissertation writing support services. So they will teach you how to write like literature review, how to construct a how to construct a final dissertation, like what is expected from each section. So it's very step by step. So yeah.
Thank you so much. And related to that, there was a question about can you do a practical dissertation or a theoretical dissertation? Now, for your degree to be accredited by the British Psychological Association, you have to pass your top courses. And you have to pass the dissertation. But not only that, the dissertation has to be practical. Now, that doesn't mean that you have to go out and work with human beings face to face, and it doesn't necessarily mean that you need to collect brand new data from human participants. As Yihan said, secondary data analysis, where you get access to a really reliable and quality data set, that can actually make an excellent dissertation. And that also ticks boxes around ethics and safety and sustainability, because oftentimes the data that we need to answer the questions that we're interested in already exists. So it maybe exists through UNICEF or through the World Health Organization or through the European Union or the World Bank or the National Health Service in the UK or Education Scotland. You know, they sometimes have databases that have, you know, thousands, if not millions of data points. And, you know, that's the kind of data that you're just not going to get by trying to recruit participants to some kind of survey or some kind. So we've got a question here. Why is the Psychological Studies programme headed by the School of Education? Short answer is we invented it. You know, the School of Education has always had a core staff of psychologists, and there's a very natural interaction between education and psychology. We as a staff are really passionate about teaching and learning, which is again one of the reasons why we're based in the School of Education. But some of it's historical, and one of the nice things about the shared delivery between the School of Psychology and the School of Education is that you're essentially getting double the resources. You're getting multiple expertise. You're getting an educational angle that you wouldn't typically get in just the School of Psychology, and you're getting a psychology and neuroscience angle that you wouldn't get purely from a School of Education. So it allows us to bring multiple strengths to the programme, and it allows us to bring in a diversity of sort of perspectives and resources that you wouldn't necessarily get from a single school. But I was actually an associate tutor back on this degree in 2006. So, you know, we're a really, really mature programme. We're really well established. We were one of the first, if not the first, conversion degrees. But yeah, it's something we're really, really proud of, is the fact that our online distance learning degree and our psych studies degree are co-delivered by psychology and education, which just adds to the strength. We've got a question about when will people get their student number and timetable. That's at the end of registration.
So once all the necessary steps of registration are complete, that generally comes through to your student record. So essentially, when that can be completed is usually sort of late August, early September. But obviously, that relies on students engaging with communications from the university and accessing the systems and selecting optional courses and these kinds of things. The one thing I would say about timetable is a little bit of a dark art. So obviously we can make estimates based on how many people are going to be in certain courses and certain programs, but we don't know until everyone completes registration whether or not we have to maybe move some rooms around. So the general advice about your timetable is every week we have a timetable app. Every week we would encourage you to check your timetable just in case there's been a room move, because the university has to maximise space. And you might think, well, what does it matter if there used to be 25 people in my group, but now there's 24? Well, actually, that means that another group that's struggling because they're maybe one over, maybe they could switch the rooms around and maximise space, because there's no point having one group at 101% and another at 99%, but you could have two at 100%. Try to make as many people happy as possible. Help about getting into volunteering. Again, the British Psychological Society runs like a careers fair, much of which is online. We advertise that through the programme. Usually runs in sort of early November. But again, we have every week or certainly regularly throughout the semester through our Teams channels and through our online virtual environment, virtual learning environment, we'll be advertising opportunities for volunteering, sometimes opportunities for paid work. But again, a lot of those conversations come through your project supervisor or through me as a programme leader. Yihan and Ananya talked about office hours. And again, coming along to staff office hours through the teaching semester is a great way to find out about how to work effectively. We're also really conscious that it's a demanding programme. So, you have to think really, really carefully about how much extra stuff you can take on top of your academic commitments, because the last thing that we want is someone to lose, to lose progress in their academic work because they're maybe over committed to volunteering roles. But yeah, we can help you with that. I've got a question about psych studies and psych science being taught by the same schools and professors. There is some shared courses, there's some shared teaching, and there's some unique. Where the biggest differences lie there are around the optional modules. And again, that's much more about the person's undergraduate background. So science is geared more towards people with one of the traditional hard sciences, and studies is geared more towards people with arts and humanities and social sciences backgrounds. There is some shared teaching, especially in things like research methods, social psychology, physiological psychology, and there is some that is unique. Is there a WhatsApp group or a Facebook group for incoming Psych MSc students to get to know one another? I don't think there's a program specific one, but again, looking out for any communications about more broadly being new to the University of Glasgow is really important, because community building is something we're really, really keen to do. And then when it comes to being enrolled on the programme, that's maybe something that you could discuss with your class representatives. We would try to respect that as a bit more of a private space. Obviously, it would come under the Code of Student Conduct, but we're really keen for people to self-organise, because that's one of the ways we know in which those communities work best. So working with your classmates and working with your class representatives to potentially set up a WhatsApp group or a Facebook group would be really helpful. But again, there'll be opportunities to engage with the university and with transitions into University of Glasgow through social media, through various means over the next few months. question about timetabling, is it more geared towards block teaching? We don't really look at doing intensive weeks. However, you know, between sort of mid-September and early December, your timetable is quite full. It's not necessarily geared towards blocking. So for example, you know, we don't have a day where it's all just social psychology. You know, you might have the social psychology lecture on a Monday and then your seminar on a Thursday. So what we try to do is make sure that there's a sensible timetabling, so that it's maybe lecture at the start of the week, small group teaching at the end of the week or the middle of the week, or even morning and afternoon, because sometimes it does land on the same day. But no, we don't sort of block teaching into intensive days and weeks. Part of that is to remove risk, because then if someone goes off sick, that's everything scuppered. We've lost everything for that day. Or, you know, if there's some sort of, you know, for example, we sometimes lose Mondays as public holidays. If we blocked a load of stuff into a Monday and then that happens to be a public holiday, then we've got an issue there. Got a question about lectures and classes recorded and uploaded. So many lectures, the traditional lectures where you all go to a big room, those are often uploaded to the virtual learning environment. Sometimes for ethical reasons or sensitivity reasons, they are not. It's kind of up to the individual staff member, and it depends on the topic. But the default position is yes, they're recorded and uploaded. And as I mentioned earlier, some courses don't have traditional lectures. What they do is they use the virtual learning environment space to give a load of resources, video presentations, notes, all these kind of things, recommended readings, and you work through them at your own pace. And then when you come into the tutorial or the seminar, you do activities based around those online learnings. What buildings classes usually in? All over the campus. The timetable is, we try to kind of coordinate the timetable so that you don't have more than 10 minutes travel between classes based on averages. And obviously, if a student reports that they have support needs or accessibility needs, we can sometimes look at room moves or even moving into different tutorial groups or lab groups to try to minimise the impact of travel. Typically, our classes start at 5 past the hour and finish at 5 to the hour, so that you've got that 10-minute travel time. Sometimes classes run back to back, in which case you probably would only have about 8 to 10 minutes to get from one place to another. But often, there's clear gaps. But yeah, we use the whole of the estate. We use the whole of the estate because we need to. We're not centralised to one single building, which I actually quite like. It means you get to see more of the campus, and we're in some of the newer buildings, we're in some of the more historic buildings. It's quite interesting. Again, just picking up that question about dissertation topic, it can be based on your prior knowledge, but the most important thing is that you and your supervisor are aligned in what you're interested in doing and how you're going to do it. That's far, far, far more important. And thinking ahead to employability or thinking ahead to further training, the topic of your dissertation is less important than the fact that you can demonstrate that you've done a dissertation and you've done it successfully, because that's all about evidencing that you've got skills, that you're ethical, that you're socially responsible, that you can handle data, and that you can write reports. It's the transferability of those skills that's more important than the actual topic itself. Although it's obviously nice to do things that you're interested in and things that you're passionate about. The research methods thing, yeah, I'll make sure that's on the digital dash. But again, we are not expecting and we are not assuming that people are coming in with high levels of extensive pre-reading. It's very important that you rest and recharge before joining this programme, because I'm sure, and Yihan and Ananya, if you agree with me, give me a nod and a smile, it's pretty intense when you get here. So I think resting in that run-up is really important. It's certainly as, if not more important than doing lots of extensive pre-reading. I'm hoping that I've picked up the the recommended reading. There'll be some stuff that goes out on the digital dashboard, and access to digital dashboard will come out in sort of central communications about your application and your registration and these kind of things. When you are a registered student on the course, the recommended readings come through the virtual learning environment. So the reading only really kicks in once you're here and on the courses, and individual courses have individual reading lists that link to the library. But we'll give you some very tentative free suggested reading, but it's really not essential. I'm just going to scroll through the chat window. Yeah, I think I replied about the working in other countries. Yeah, people take their degree and go work in a whole bunch of places afterwards, which is great. Yep, and thank you, Lawrence, for picking up the question about fee status and time outside the UK. Thank you, Yihan, for volunteering your LinkedIn profile. That's excellent. So I'm slightly conscious of time, and again, I'm really grateful to everyone who was able to be here today. The questions were really lively. The questions were really helpful. In order for me to think about, what maybe do we need to make sure that we double check and cover at induction when we have our induction week at the start of September, to make sure that our programme handbook is up to date, to make sure that the things that people are generally concerned about are actually covered there. So yeah, this has been really helpful for me. I hope it's been helpful for you. And of course, please do keep in touch. Earlier on in the chat window, I put the Education M Studies generic email account. These are for sort of general inquiries related to programme. That's much more about programme content, so things like timetabling and assessment and dissertation. That account isn't really helpful for queries about admissions necessarily or funding necessarily, but certainly questions related to the kind of academic day-to-day of the course. If something comes to you after this session, that education-MSc Psych Studies at glasgow.ac.uk. We check that account a couple of times a week, and that's a really good place to float questions. Jennifer really helpfully has posted the link to the web form for inquiries for admissions. There's also a chat function within that page, which is really helpful as well. Brilliant, thank you so much. So we've still got a couple of minutes in case some other questions are coming in. I'm trying to think if there was anything that popped into my head while we were talking. I think this was nice. I think we were able to kind of cover the major things. And again, one of the most interesting things for me is the diversity of questions, and obviously, lots of people interested in lots of different things. A platform or contact best suited to finding queries. If it's academic queries about the types of assessment or the real core learning that you're going to do, that education-MSc Psych Studies at Glasgow. For funding queries. Yeah, the programme website, I would say. So when you go onto the university website, there's a programme page that has the admissions criteria and the how to apply and all these things. At the bottom of that, there's a whole bunch of potential funding sources. There's also, resources through the Student Representative Council about how to access funding. Jennifer has helpfully posted the link to that page I'm describing, and there's an awful lot of information about scholarships and funding. Some of the scholarships and funding issues, it depends on your registration status and where you've been domiciled and all these things. It's also worth sometimes just phoning, funding agencies. So, for example, if you're based in Scotland and you've been resident here for a little while, phone SAS, the Student Awards Agency for Scotland. The worst they can do is say you're not eligible for anything. And similarly, exploring that university website, really taking time to look through those options can help you out there. I'm not really sure if the student finance team would be able to help with that. They tend more to deal with things like, payment of fees and hardship funds and these types of things when students are actually here. That's actually a really important thing, is that the university does actually have a student hardship fund. So if students get into difficulty, you can reach out to me as a program leader and we can link you towards the hardship fund. It is tough times. We are not naive to the fact that it's a really, really tough time just kind of getting by at the moment. We are not naive to the reality of that. So yeah, we are quite well adept at helping out if people get into a bit of difficulty. Okay, thank you so much, colleagues. Thank you so much, Yihan and Ananya. And thank you very much, everyone, for participating. And if you're accessing this through the recording, again, thank you so much for your time and your engagement. I hope to see as many as you as possible in the new academic year. I really enjoy working on this programme. I think psychology is absolutely fascinating. And again, I think we're a really interesting bunch because we've all come from such different disciplines and such different places, and we've all got such different goals. I think that makes for a really lively and interesting community. So please do enjoy the rest of your day. And again, thanks for your time. Here's to good health and better times ahead. Take care, everyone.